In this video, I'm gonna show you a high-end skin retouching with dodge and burn in Photoshop 2024. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me yet, my name is Silvia. I'm a specialist in maternity photography. In this channel, I talk about professional editing techniques to help you make more money with your photos. Now, let's get into the video. As you probably have seen out there are many ways that you can retouch your client's skin. Each technique will give you a different quality on this skin. The best way to smooth your client's skin and at the same time preserve all the texture of the skin is with the dodge and burn technique. Differently from the frequent separation where you create two layers, one with tones and another one with texture, with dodge and burn technique, you will be only modifying the luminosity in your client's skin. Because of that, the skin will look way more realistic. So when you're deciding in what technique to use, you need to think about the results that you want for your photos. Another thing that's very important to take in consideration is that this dodge and burn technique will take more time to complete the retouching process. If you don't have time, I would recommend you to use different techniques or only use this technique in photos that you have a really close up of her face. If you are a beauty photographer, this technique will be very important for you for sure, 100%. And now let's learn about the technique. To dodge and burn the skin, you have many different ways that you can do that as well. One of them is by going here and use the dodge and burn tool. I do not like to work with that, but this is something that you can do. You're just selecting dodge and then you're gonna light up your photo. Or if you select burn, you're going to make it darker. Another way that you can work with that is by creating curves. So you can come here in the filters and create a curve layer. This one's gonna be your dodge. So you're gonna make the curve a little bit lighter. You're gonna hide this mask. And now you're gonna create another curve layers. And this one is gonna be your burn. So you're gonna make a little bit darker and you're gonna hide this mask. And now you're gonna use the brush tool. You're gonna lower your opacity to 3, for example. And then let me get closer to her face. As you can see, her skin has a lot of texture. She has some bumps, she has some zits around, but let me get closer. So you're gonna go with your brush. You're gonna have a small size of a brush. And you're gonna start lighting up. 3 might be not enough. I'm just gonna go here 60. You're not gonna do that. I'm just showing you the different ways that you can do dodge and burn. But the idea is that you're gonna make it darker. And with the dodge layer, you're gonna make it lighter. So the same idea as using these two tools as well. Another thing that you can do here is to change the blending mode to luminosity. Because sometimes, especially when you're working in the burn layer, when you make something darker, the color of the pixels tend to get a little bit more saturated. So when you change the blending mode to luminosity, you're making sure that you're just working with the luminosity. I don't know if you can tell, but there is a little bit of a difference in the colors before and after. And you can do that for the burn layer and also to the dodge layer. And you can put them together in a folder and just write dodge and burn. Okay, let me delete this. Perfect. Another way that you can do the dodge and burn technique as well is by creating a new layer. And in this layer, you are going to change the blending mode to soft light. And what you're going to do is just be painting the photo with white or painting with black. I'm gonna show you a different way that you can also do that instead of painting with black and white. But it is another way that you can do the dodge and burn technique. And I do really like to use this technique because I can easily just switch it up between colors. So if you press X on your keyboard, you just switch it up in the colors. So if you want to brighten it up and then dark it out and brighten it up, you can do that very easily, and I think it's faster than using curves, and I do like the results of this technique as well. But let me delete this. But the idea of what you want to do with the dodge and burn is that, let's think that we are working with the luminosity. So I'm gonna create a layer to guide us so we can see better the luminosity of the photo, because sometimes when we are looking to the colors, this affects us to understand where we need to work in the luminosity. Let me just create a black and white layer, and I'm gonna create a curves layer. And I'm just gonna give a little bit more of a contrast here so I can see better where the light is hitting her. As you will understand now, all the bumps on her face, for example, we have, let me change the color. We have like a bump right. Let me create a layer. We have a bump right here, another one right here. And what these bumps are in the texture of the skin is just a darker area right here, and then a lighter area right here. This is what the bump is. It is just a game of light and dark. So what we want to do, pretty much, the dodge and burn technique, is to make this part, is to make the dark areas a little bit lighter and the brightest area a little bit darker. So right now, if I go back to see the before and after, I remove the bump. I made it, the bump seem a little bit less visible. And if I do that to more bumps around her face, so we are going to make the bump less visible. So before and after. And here I'm working with the wrong blending mode. So let me just put on the soft light. Before and after. Let me take the guide layer away. So that's before, and here's the after. Now let me show you the way that I would do this technique. So I would still, I'm gonna erase everything and start from zero. I have my photo right here, and I really wanna work this part here so we can see how this technique works on her cheek, where I have a lot of bumps and zits and everything. So I would first create a guide to help me to see the luminosity on her face. So I would create a layer that's black and white layer, and I would create another curve layers, and here I would just drag down and drag a little bit up so I can see the contrast on her face. And now I can see better where the bumps are and what I need to work on. So I'm gonna put both of them in a folder, and I'm gonna write guide. And now I'm gonna create another layer. I'm gonna change the blending mode to soft light. And one thing that you can do is work with black and white, or you can actually work with the tones of her skin. And that's what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm gonna stop seeing this guide here for a second, and I'm just gonna select a color here that it is part of the brightest area of her face. So I think this part here, it's really good. So I'm gonna select a color, and now I'm gonna bring a little bit up and to the left because I wanna make this a little bit less saturated and a little bit brighter. So I'm just gonna go in diagonal here, and I think that this is a pretty good color, so I'm gonna hit OK. Now I'm gonna change the black, and I'm gonna do the same thing but a darker area. I'm not gonna be selecting a color on her cheek because she has a lot of makeup, I'm actually going to be selecting a color here, like where we have like a shadow or something. I think here is pretty good. So I'm gonna be selecting a color around here. I think this is good. But I want to remove a little bit of the saturation of this color and make a slightly darker. So I'm just gonna go lower and to the left. So I'm just gonna drag this to diagonal. And I think that this is good. Instead of working with black and white, I'm just gonna be working with the color of her skin, but a color that's very bright and a color that's very dark from her skin. Okay, so let me use now the guide so I can see better here where I need to work on. And the way that I want to start doing this process is, instead of making the dark areas lighter, I'm actually going to start making the brighter areas a little bit darker. So I'm gonna start using the dark color here and actually go to the lighter part of her face and start painting a little bit. And I have opacity of 5, a very low opacity. And this is easier if you have a Wacom tablet. So it's like a pen that you're just like painting. It is easier than a mouse for sure. And you can see here the before and after that are making the brightest area a little bit darker. And I can easily just click X in the keyboard and switch it up, and now I'm gonna make the darker areas a little bit lighter. And again, you don't want to make it all the way that it's on the same level of luminosity, because you still want to feel like she has the texture, right? So you just want to make less visible. And here's the before and after, how it's looking. Let's see without the guide here. So I'm gonna be working a little bit here around her cheek so we can see how this technique actually helps to smooth out your client's face. So let me just speed up the video. So you want to zoom out and have an idea of how it's looking, and you can also work from a little bit further away than just working like really close. It's something that you want to do. Okay, so I've worked a little bit on this area here. She has a lot of things to work on her skin, and I just want to show you how you can actually use and do this technique. So first I will go in the bumps just like I showed you, and I would do a little bit of this cleaning process, and here's the before and after. There are way more to do, but the second part of what I would do right now is to not go to the bumps, but actually just go a little bit more in the big areas. So for example, if I go here, I can see that this part here is lighter. I can see that this part here is a little bit darker, and here's lighter again. So I can just smooth out the whole luminosity around her face. So this whole area is a little bit dark, but I still want to keep the dark and lighter areas because it is creating the contour of her face. So I can just adjust all of that with the dodge and burn and just make a little bit smoother the transition, and even intensify a little bit more of the contour as well. So let me just erase this. Let me go back to the layer. I'm even gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna go with the opacity around 5 is good. And I would just again start darken out the lighter areas first and then lighten up a little bit of the dark areas. So let's take a look of what I have got so far. So I'm gonna put both layers in a folder. I'm gonna write bumps, bigger area. Okay. So with the guide before and after, and here we are not destructing any of the texture. So let's remove this guide here. So here's the before and here's the after. Another thing that you can do as well to help you through the process of doing this and being a little bit fast is to create another layer. You can actually even do that before you start the dodge and burn process, but it's just to remove like big spots that are on her face. So for example, I would just, let me put all the layers together here. There we go. And I would just remove before starting the dodge and burn process, just to help a little bit out with your work. Just like bigger things, nothing too much. Let's see with the guide here. So here's the before and here's the after, before and after. And here's the before and after without using the patch tool. Another thing that I would do is just to use some gradient map and correct a little bit of this the color of her skin, or you can use the hue saturation as well. So for example, I think that here is a little bit too saturated, so I can just go here with the hand, click here, go all the way up. I'm actually gonna go all the way up with hue, go back with the saturation, and I just wanna change a little bit of that area. So I'm gonna move this part here so I can select only the area that was on her cheek, and I'm gonna start removing. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna go to my brush and I'm gonna go opacity 100. I am gonna hide what I don't want it to be affect, like here on her eye, because I have her makeup on her lips, on her nose. I think that's all good. Let me remove from her hand. I'm just gonna work on her cheek and that part there. Okay. Okay, this is good. So I'm just gonna go back here, go back to reds. I'm gonna go back with my hue saturation where it was, and I'm just gonna saturate this part a little bit. And I'm gonna go just a little bit to the right with my hue. And this is good. This is good. Okay, just a little bit less saturated. Another thing that you can do and work in this photo, for example, is just to make the skin color a little bit better. So I would select brightest color here on her face that I think it's good. I would start with this part here. No. Opa, I need to select the photo. I think here is a good color. And now I would select a dark color, and I would not select the cheek because it has a bunch of makeup, so I'll choose something around here. I think this is good. And now I would go and create a gradient map, and I can just make this better. So I'm gonna create another dot here. And I'm gonna make this first one a little bit brighter and less saturated. And I'm gonna create another one here in the middle that is a little bit darker. I think this is good. And I have this darker color here. The brightest spot is 24, so I would copy the brightest spot here, and I would add 24 in the location. So this is the 24, and I would create another one a little bit darker and less saturated. Okay, so this is how we're looking so far with the color of her skin. So I'm gonna hit OK. Let me just see here. You can just move around and see how kind of work with the luminosity as well on her face and the colors. Okay, I think that this is a beautiful contrast and color. So I'm gonna hit OK. I'm gonna make a selection now of her skin, of her face. So I'm gonna click here, and I'm just gonna drag around her face and her neck. I don't care a lot about her neck here, but this is good so far. I can remove this area and the earring. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to the mask here, and I'm gonna delete, and I'm gonna remove the selection by pressing Command D. And now my mask is getting the color in the wrong place, so I'm just gonna press Command I, and now it is on her face. Of course that it does not look good, so we are gonna change the blending mode to soft light, and this is way too strong, so I'm gonna reduce the opacity to 0, and slightly I'm just gonna go up with the opacity. And I think that it's getting a little bit too contrasting, so I'm gonna go back to the gradient map, and I'm gonna adjust where I put the marks here. So here's the before and here's the after. I think it is a little bit too strong, so I'm just gonna lower the opacity to 30. Before and after, before and after. This is looking pretty good for me. I am gonna put everything in one layer, and now I'm gonna use my color grading. Gonna hit OK. Another thing that I'm going to do is just to go with the hue saturation. I'm gonna go to red, and I think that the red is very saturated, so I'm just gonna lower the opacity a little bit. I am gonna hide the mask, and I'm just gonna go where I think that it is too saturated. And now I just want to clean one spot here on her nose that's bothering me a little bit, and let me just clean this part here as well. Okay, so I'm gonna put everything together in a folder. I'm gonna use this guide here so we can just take a look at the texture of her skin. Here's the before, here's the after, before and after. Now let's see with all the colors. Here's the before and here's the after. If I get closer to her face, we can see that all the texture is still intact. So this is a non-destructive way of you working on her face. It is more realistic because you can see a lot of the skin texture as well, very different from frequency separation. However, it will take way more time. For me to make this photo perfect, I will need to take way longer than I did right here. And right here, I'm just trying to demonstrate you how the technique is done. So I did it in a very fast way just to show you a little bit of what you can do with this technique. But here's the before And here's the after, before and after. Click the like button if you like the results. Now you know how to skin retouching with dodge and burn, preserving the texture of your client's skin. If you want to know other ways to improve your skills to make more money with photos, check out my latest video here on the screen. Also, subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every week. For now, this is everything. I hope this video was really helpful for you. Until next time.